When you hear about rapids, you might think, it's not for me, but a bad rapid can break your machine. And that's not very good. We're gonna look in the computer in a minute, but first I want to build something to illustrate what I mean. I want to illustrate something. These two holes, these are the ones we're going to cut, and that's the same model we have in the 3D5X samples library. We want to come down on this side and cut in here. That will require a special cutting head. A cutting head that, here's the mug again, that rotates the A-axis, or the major axis, and pivots the minor axis. So the movement of this cutting head would go down like this and pivot in like this. And then it can cut. This type of cutting head is great for this application, but it's not great for cutting flat material. Let me show you that. So let's just say we have our flat piece of material here, and we have this cutting head, which maybe we want to compensate for the taper. Then for every movement this makes, the whole machine have to compensate, because it doesn't have a fixed tool center point. A fixed tool center point means if the cutting head moves, the major and the minor axis moves, the tip of the nozzle should always be fixed, so it's rotating on a point. Why is this important? Well, it's important because we want as little movement as possible in the machine. So this is not a great tool for cutting flat piece of material, but it is a great tool for cutting this type of 3D objects. Let me show you what that tool center point looks on our tilter. So let me show you what I mean. We have a joystick here, and at the tip of the nozzle here, if I move the cutting head, the tip is staying at the same position no matter how much I tilt this. That's a fixed tool center point. That's the same for this type of head. As you see, the tip is staying at the same position no matter how I move the head. The big difference between these cutting heads, though, is that if I move this a little bit like that, this movement is very big. I mean, I can rotate around my own axis, while this one only rotates like a couple of degrees. So that's the power of tilter. We have small angle movements for taper angle control like this, but we can also go down to 4 to 5 degrees real fast, like that. Alright, so now you know more about tool center points. Maybe I got a little bit off topic, but it's important to know the different types of cutting heads and the pros and cons of them. This rotating and pivot cutting head is great for this, so I was thinking we're gonna look at the model in CAD/CAM. So let's open Rapid's approach, and it looks like this. I am, as always, adding my curves, toolpaths, here is one very important thing. You know, we've talked about the toolpath plane. I want to have select plane and this plane right there, otherwise there will be a crash. Let's add another one here. That's our lower curve. S for select plane, this plane, enter, enter. Alright, now, as you can see, the rapids are just going up straight through this model. So we want to go in to rapids, and on this particular model we want to use the modify. The individual will only raise them, but this modify can also go in different directions. So I want to select modify, and let's select the first one. I want to use another plane because now we have this plane. I want to use the Y plane, I think. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go out to here and then up there, hit enter, and I want to use this one. I want to use the Y plane. No, I don't. I want to use select plane. I select this side, and I want to go out, up, over, and down. And then this, I want to use the Y plane, go there and up. So that's all in good, but let's see what happens when let's go here and simulate. I'm gonna go in here. It will look like this. Goes that way, select the next one. Here, goes up, there, like that. Now we can also, in here, we can also use the rapids, and there's a tool direction, so we can change the vector of the tool at certain points. So let's select, I don't know, let's select this cut and maybe this point. Let's see, straight. So at this point I want to move this to about there. And here I want it to be straight. Okay, done. So now I'll change the vectors on the toolpath. So you can modify these pretty much however you want. You can go around things, you can move them in, you can... It's a very powerful tool. So let's see what this one looks like. Okay, delete file, no. So I've changed to this rotate and pivot cutting head so that you see how it actually looks. It doesn't look like this with a pen sticking to it. So our first cut, okay, it did something strange there. I don't know what that was. It goes down, in, cuts. It should cut like that. And in here we also see the tilt. Our machine is set to like 45 degrees. That's the maximum tilt, but let me see what happened there. Up. Okay, so that's something we want to change perhaps. So we go into toolpaths, vector, this thing. That point I want straight. Yes, and that point I want straight. Yes. And that point I want to move like that. Alright, and that point I want to move it out probably like that. Alright, maybe just put another one here. Like that. Alright, and this one is straight. Okay, let's look at that one. Alright, no. So go out, and from here goes up, straight, comes down. That looks a lot better. So just modify it, play around with it. You will see if there's a collision, and I mean, it doesn't have to be a complex movement, but you can, if you're producing like thousands of these parts, if you can improve the rapids a little bit, you'll make more time. So yeah, that's a long video about rapids. Have a good one.